Welcome to Across the Balkans. Great to have you with us on the show. I'm Ludovica Brignola. According to a new report by the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organised Crime, Western sanctions on Russian oil following the Ukraine war have ignited fuel smuggling in the Balkans. The report reveals in 2022, police and customs in 7 Balkan countries seized more than 3,000 tons of illegal fuel valued at $4.7 million. That's almost 4 times more than in 2021. And the jump coincides with the start of Russia's attack on Ukraine in February last year. The document also says international criminal organizations are smuggling fuel to profit from the conflict in Ukraine. Despite being curbed by international sanctions following the 1990s Balkan War, several countries in the region are still hotspots for trafficking fuel. One of them is Bulgaria, which suffered budget losses of around $270 million from the illegal trade in 2019. And the report warns an upcoming halt to Bulgarian crude oil imports from Russia in 2024 risks stoking the illicit trade even more. It also says Romania, Albania and Serbia may emerge as major hubs for smuggling fuel. Joining me now from Milan is Ernesto Savona. He's the director of the research center Transcrime. Thank you very much for being with us today. So fuel smuggling was very well known during the Yugoslav wars in the Balkans, but it dropped off for a long time. What's the reason behind its recent resurrection?
Well, I think there are many reasons, many factors that are playing a very central role. The first one are geopolitical. From the 90s to today, there's been a lot of changes, and the war in Ukraine is creating a lot of different problems in terms of oil smuggling. The second one is the demand of legal oil. You need to take into account that Libya is one of the 2 countries together with Ukraine which are producing oil, and the shortage in Libya and in other countries are producing the trafficking of oil, filling the demand. Prices are different between the Balkan countries. There is small people buying a place and selling in another place, facilitating the smuggling of oil. And of course, is the typology of the criminal groups, which are really becoming very strong because of the war in the Balkans in the 90s. And today, the origin of the organized crime in the Balkans was oil smuggling in particular. Today, these are very well-established groups which are absolutely international, playing a role between one and the other countries. And if you look to the geography, the Danube River is an opportunity for smuggling. There is a lot of hotspots across the river, which goes from one country to the other. The river is touching many different countries in the Balkans. So a lot of different factors are playing a central role. And the war in Ukraine has given an impulse to the oil smuggling before.
Very, very interesting, and we will expand on the Ukrainian point in a bit. But before that, I would just want to ask you, what are the long-term economic implications of fuel smuggling for the region as a whole? And I'm not just referring to Albania, which seems to be central when it comes to smuggling, for instance, the port of Durrës and the likes. What are the implications for the region?
Well, the main implication is a lot of tax evasion. Of course, the people don't pay taxes, and there is a shortage in tax income in the different countries involved. This is the first one. The second one is that they are making much richer the criminal groups and providing money for their pockets and laundering the money across the different banks in Cyprus and in other places. These are the 2 main economic implications. But remember one thing, illegal oil does not pay taxes.
Interesting. And as we said, in the Global Initiative report, it is said that the Ukraine war presents a potential risk for Russian crude oil smuggling through the Balkans. What do you think? Because as we said before, in 2022, the authorities had confiscated 4 times the amount of illicit fuel than they did in 2021. And the jump coincided precisely with the start of the war in Ukraine. Can you explain to us why? What do you make of that?
Well, because Ukraine, together with Libya, was one of the sources of the oil in some ways, and having the sanctions which were imposed by the EU to different countries changed the landscape of the smuggling of illegal oil, which means today we expect that once the embargo to Bulgaria and the other countries which has been lifted at the moment they can buy oil, Russian oil, but when they will not be able to buy Russian oil, which will come in few months now, this will happen an increase in the oil smuggling in the region.
Right, as you say, a shortage of oil, obviously, increase in the crime rate. How can the Balkan countries respond to this kind of organized crime? What should they do?
Well, there is an answer that answers to the way in which criminals are behaving. International cooperation between the different police and law enforcement it's extremely crucial, which means they need to cooperate each other because this is really a transnational crime, especially transnational across the Balkans.
A question on the history of all this. I mean, let's take a step back and try and understand, why did it all start in the first place, well before the Yugoslav wars? Why the Balkans specifically?
Well, the Balkans in the 90s were extremely fragmented because of the war. Wars are creating asymmetries between countries, different legislation fighting each other. And from them, this is the origin of oil smuggling, which happens also between Libya and Italy across the Mediterranean, which is not only Balkans, but Libya. We have two different areas, Mediterranean and Balkans. And, you know, Libya is a very highly fragmented country with no government or very weak government and high level of corruption. When you have a move to the Balkans, you have exactly the same thing. A very weak government, a high level of corruption and action of law enforcement, and all these three ingredients make very easy to smuggle the oil from one place to the other. They create business. And we call the oil mafia in Serbia, which was really a very well-established organized crime groups because of the oil. So they call oil mafia.
Right. What should international bodies as well do in order to make this situation better? And also, are you optimistic that this will get any better in the near to medium term?
I am optimistic because the economic sanctions of Europe are working, not well, but are working in some ways. We'll see what happens once the embargo will be lifted and Bulgaria will be obliged to buy oil from other countries and not from Russia. And we will see what happens when the demand for oil will increase. From a scenario we do at the moment, if there is no way to combat illegal trade of oil, there will be the increasing demand of illegal oil. But probably countries are acting and finding remedies. As I said before, international cooperation between the different law enforcement bodies across the regions is doing quite a good work at the moment, but they could do much better.
And that's fundamental. Ernesto Savona, thank you very much for your analysis. Much appreciated.
To you, thanks a lot.